why is it so hush hush? This is so important. It's when you compare it to your physical health, if your physical health, something's not feeling good, your shoulder's hurting you, maybe your stomach's hurting you a little bit more, you go to the doctor, you figure out a remedy, you figure out medication, you figure something out because you don't just sit in pain. That's not fair. It's not fair for you to sit in pain when it's your mental health, period. Wait, it's not that deep. Hey, you guys. Welcome back to Not That Deep. My locations just keep on changing, and I know you cannot keep up, but it's not your job to keep up. It's just your job to sit back, relax, and enjoy. One day we'll do a scavenger hunt of where is Dana recording? And when it's in my apartment, you get $10 because that was not good. And I think looking back, it is funny to think that that is my original game plan was to record in my apartment because I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's really okay to admit. A big part of growing up, and specifically my frontal lobe developing, is recognizing you don't always have the answers and you really need to ask for help. And that's never something I've struggled with, but actually sometimes at work, one time at work, I was talking to like this guy who's much higher up than me, and he stops me and he goes, "You ask so many questions, Dana." But it wasn't about how do I do this, or is this right, or is this wrong? It was just asking him about his personal life. And sometimes you can read the room of, okay, maybe I should stop asking, but also it's not my fault I care. Because if someone keeps asking me questions, everyone likes to talk about themselves. If someone's like, "Oh, I hate talking about myself," you're a liar. I think maybe you could be more shy. Maybe you don't like to talk about yourself in a group setting, but everyone likes to talk about themselves. So keep asking questions, keep doing what you're doing. I'm so happy to be back in the studio because yesterday something happened, and another part of growing up is admitting fault, and a lot of things are my fault. But what's amazing is when things happen that were a mistake and you can blame it on other people or other environmental factors. What's really tough is when you mess up or something else gets messed up and the only person to look at is yourself. So yesterday, you might remember from a couple interviews ago, I interviewed Neil Kleinberg, the owner of Clinton Street Baking Company, owner and head chef, excusez-moi. That's what his LinkedIn probably says if he had a LinkedIn. And I had interviewed him when I recorded another studio. Obviously, I have another studio. And this studio was not like this one. One of these things is not like the other. This studio was not like this one. And if you don't know what is out there until you know what's out there. And with this studio, the previous one, I got what I got and I didn't get upset. That's a modern take on you get what you get and you do not get upset. And it was really just video and audio, and I didn't really ask like what angles I should be using or if the audio was working and why my headphones were so loud. I just kind of was given things and then I made do. And that was a really good life lesson, which I do for myself a lot. I teach myself a lot of life lessons. But that was a good life lesson of, ask more questions. And so I recorded there and I was like, that was such a good interview. I got such good answers from him. We had such good banter. And I'm watching it before I post it. And I'm like, this is kind of bad. Wicked reference, something bad. I was so upset about it, but I also didn't feel like I had another choice, which is something else where I'm like, what are you doing, dude? So I was torn. Do I delete it and forget it ever happened? I mean, this guy took 2 hours out of his day. Neil actually took 2 hours out of his day where he put pigs in the blanket in the oven at Clinton Street, walked over 3 blocks, and then by the time we were done, he went back to Clinton Street and then retrieved thy pigs in a blanket from the oven. I mean, this is this is the working class. This is a man. And so when he came, I was so appreciative of the time that I didn't have it in me to not post it. He does not give a fuck. Like, he could not care less if I posted it, if I deleted it, if I never talked to him again. But I liked the interview, so I wanted to post it. I posted it. You know, people are saying, Dana, good for you. Good for you, Dana. That's really cool, Dana. No one's like, what an amazing interview. No one's like, I loved his answer to this. Actually, both my dad and my mom did. Both my mom and my dad did call out specific references from the interview, which means they listened. But they also called out that the quality was not that good. And that's what they're for. So if people are listening to your interview, why are you doing it? I mean, you could do it for you, sure. Why am I doing a podcast if I have 20 listeners? It's for me. But I did the interview and then I posted it. Nothing really came from it. What did I expect? Like a people interview? I don't know. Not necessarily. But I wanted more. I wanted social clips. I wanted stuff to hype him up. I wanted to secretly put QR codes in Clinton Street Baking Company and then have people scan it while they're waiting for their pancakes. And they'll be like, wow, I can't wait to hear more about this guy. Oh my God, this girl, she is unbelievably gorgeous, funny, talented. Whatever is organic that they would say, what came from their first thoughts when they saw me, fine. I'm not here to please. But I posted it kind of bad. And I said, Neil, you really deserve a better interview. And what I meant by that was I deserve to have a better interview with him. And that's just the truth. So I invited him. I booked time at this lovely studio. And I'm a bit of a diva where I'm really last minute with stuff. And then I think it's like cute. And then the other people that have to deal with my nonsense are like, do you mind not doing that? And it's like, yeah, I'll try my best. He had also agreed, Neil, in the morning to do it. So I texted him kind of out of the blue, manically, as I do my best work. I'm a coffee in and I'm like, let's go, I had 2 hours free after work. So he was down to do the podcast. I booked studio space. I'm like, and I'll even do my own podcast. I'll do a solo episode after. I am feeling so accomplished that I'm going to work this work day and then I'm going to go do not one, but 2 podcasts. Feel so good about it. And I get to the studio. I like to offer Chris, who is running this goddamn ship, I like to offer him, perhaps a snack, a beverage, something. I don't think that's a lot. And if I'm coming here, I obviously want to make sure he's like fed and hydrated because I'm Jewish. And so I texted him, hey, I'm here. And then he didn't respond right away. I was like, that's weird. He must be in the studio with someone. And then Neil texts me that he's here. I'm like, perfect timing. Neil's going to show up. Chris is going to come outside with open arms to hug me. Dana, I've been so excited to see you, etc. So I go and grab Neil and we're waiting. And then Chris calls me. And I'm like, hold on, Neil, just 1 second. Because Chris is obviously calling to tell me he's so excited to see me. Just wait 1 second. The studio's almost ready. Chris calls me and he's like, hey, Dana. I'm like, hi, what's up? He's like, you booked studio time for tomorrow. And I was like, are you ever just like so mad at yourself that you don't even have words? Like, Chris was at the spa. Babes was enjoying a scrub down, whatever he was doing. Happy endings for all. Meanwhile, this bitch is here like knocking on his door like, are you here? And if Chris had been in the wrong, it would have been a different story. What I was hoping for was he was in the wrong, unfortunately. He told me, Dana, you booked studio for tomorrow. I go, classic, getting gaslit. This is just classic. He hangs up and then I look at the booking and no, it's for today, aka tomorrow. And Neil is sitting there, doe-eyed, so patient. And I am so frustrated with myself. And it's actually been a second since I felt that way, which is a pretty cool feeling, but it's only because I've had other people to blame. I've felt frustration in the last 27 years, for sure. But when it comes to me, there really is usually something else to blame. Even if it's like my shoe, let's say I trip, I'm not mad at myself, I'm mad at my shoe. I do everything in my power to not blame myself. Is that healthy? Yeah, I'm going to find out soon. I have therapy on Monday. So I'll report back. But I say to Neil, I'm so sorry. I messed up. It's for tomorrow. I don't know what I expect him to say. He's like, all right, well, on the way here, I stopped by Keen's and I told them we were going to be there in about an hour and a half. Why don't we go there? And I'm like, what's Keen's? You know, Keen. Keen is a noun. It's not a restaurant. He says Keen's is, I love the way he said Keen's is a steakhouse, Dana, around the corner from here. And I told the door guy, Dominic, to expect us in a couple hours. I'm doing a podcast. And he's already pivoting. He is so unfazed by this snafu. And I wish that I could have just pivoted with him, but I was so focused on being mad at myself that I couldn't right away. Obviously, everything gets better. I'm at rock bottom and I actually start crying, and I am so emotional. Like, if I can't go into politics because they would label me as that like emotional woman who can't get shit done if she's in her luteal phase or if she's menstruating. And the fact of the matter is I can't really get shit done ever without crying. And I don't need to blubber. I don't need 10 minutes. I need a solid 97 seconds to just cry, and then I'm good. I think I'm a parent's dream. As a child, I wasn't like that. But as I grew up, I am that. Like, tickle me Elmo. I'm like crying for 90 seconds adult. And so, his kindness is something that I will always remember, because he worked a whole day. He's up at 4 a.m. making bagels, working as head chef. He also did video content for a magazine, which will come out soon. And video content for a magazine is a oxymoron. Video content for an online portion of a magazine. Duh. Who's reading a magazine these days? Who knows how to read these days? And he still made the best of the situation. And that's the role that I typically try to play. But for whatever reason, I just couldn't right away, because I think I just felt so bad. And then it also made me grateful for his delivery, yes, but imagine if he was annoyed with me. Imagine if he was actually frustrated and showed disappointment and was angry at me or said something that I was still reeling from the next day. And I am really sensitive. I'm so sensitive. That's something that I think it's nice, but I need to grow some thick skin, and it's really hard. Like, I think I've been through a lot in my life where tough times don't really get to me, but tough words get to me, because that feels intentional to me. I think when tough times happen in my life and it's external and I just am kind of left to cope and deal with it, it's easier for me because I feel like it's happening to me, but it's not directed at me. Whereas when tough words are said to me, I know it's directed at me. And you could go and you could say, well, it's more of a reflection on the person saying them. It's not so much about you. Don't let it get to you. But what if it is about you? And my point is that I'm grateful for when people can have something happen to them, directed at them, and have a calm demeanor, because that's something I'm working on. But also I know that the only way to actually work on it is to go through it. So I'm just kind of nervous these days, but maybe I just need to hire people to kind of bully me, or perhaps throw slushies at me on the street, Glee style. And I just kind of have to work my way through it. But he had a great outlook and he pivoted. And while I'm on the word pivot, I think that there has to be another pop culture reference to pivot that's not Friends, because I cannot stand the show Friends. Most shows with a laugh track eat at my flesh because it should just be funny. Like, why do you need to prove it? Because a show like iCarly also has a laugh track, but like that is a children's show. Children do not know when to laugh and need to be guided. Fair. Friends is an adult sitcom. Like, people should hear a funny line and then be able to laugh. But I'll be so honest, like I don't think Friends is funny. And I get that it's like no one is like, I mean, maybe people are, come for me. People are like, oh my God, Friends is the funniest show. Have you seen Curb Your Enthusiasm? Have you seen The Office? I just named 2 different shows that are not the same because people freak out if they don't think The Office is funny. And then I am over here vouching for The Office. People will lose their shit. They're like, I seriously don't understand how you think The Office is funny. And it's like, you're also like the same as talking to a piece of dry paint. Like, sometimes I get you have to be in the mood for certain shows. I've really never been in the mood for Friends. What's the mood? Like, in Comatose, I just don't get it. And so I think that I have trauma related to Friends too, which is like another layer of the tiramisu of my Friends dilemma. Because when I was abroad, I lived in Italy and I did not like my roommate. And I don't know why she would hear this, but like, if she does, I know that you agree with me and we don't need to talk about it at all. But basically, we did not vibe, we did not jive, and I also was going through a really hard time when I first got to Italy. It was when I first realized I was gorgeous. No, I'm just kidding. It was the first time I realized that I was depressed. I got to Italy and I did not feel like myself. And I was journaling a lot. And I think at first I just thought it was jet lag. I had never been to Europe, and everyone must feel this way, right? You're in a new city. There's a lot of adjustment. And I started taking photos of the journals that I was writing and sending them to my mom and sister because they were trying to ask me how I was feeling, and I couldn't really put it into texting words or talking words, but I could write about it, which also the power of the written word is so amazing. But I was writing and, I was writing things. I wasn't having like horrible thoughts, and I wasn't in a very dark place, but I was in a place that I had never been before. And I think that's something to recognize too, is just because you're not at the bottom, the lowest that you'll ever be, does not deviate from the fact that you are at a low spot. And that deserves recognition and that deserves attention. And same with when you're having like a good day. If you know what it's like to have the most amazing day and you're not having that, you could still recognize that you're having a good day. Like, it's not all or nothing. And I think that when you're at the other side of that, when you're at the lower end of that, it can be confusing if you've never felt like that before. Me, for most of my life, I was fine. I mean, in college, I didn't really ever think like I was in a bad place. I think that there was so much stimulation, not simulation. And I was always stimulated. There was never almost like downtime. Think whoever's listening to this, like, did you take downtime in college? What was downtime? I was like always with my friends. I was always like butt chugging. I was always doing a million different things. And maybe I was having mental health problems and I just didn't even realize it, or I didn't even recognize what that could look like. It was like, why is it so hush hush? This is so important. It's when you compare it to your physical health, if your physical health, something's not feeling good, your shoulder's hurting you, maybe your stomach's hurting you a little bit more, you go to the doctor, you figure out a remedy, you figure out medication, you figure something out, because you don't just sit in pain. That's not fair. It's not fair for you to sit in pain when it's your mental health, period. And I am so grateful to come from a family that my mom is a therapist. My mom is a social worker. My sister has had her battles with mental health. And I immediately, when I was writing these things down in my journal, I was like, this is not me. This is not Dana. And to have a sense of self is great, sure. But to realize when you're deviating from that sense of self is actually, I think, more important, because maybe you want to get back to that sense of self, or maybe you're like, let's move on. Give me Adderall, whatever it may be. And so when I was in Florence, I ended up seeing a therapist and I ended up getting on Lexapro. And I think at first when I was taking Lexapro, I was like, well, when do I get off of this? Like the second I got prescribed it, I was looking to get off of it. And why? I don't know. Because there's a stigma. Duh. There's a stigma. Or there was a stigma. I can confidently say there was a stigma. And in 2018, I'm given Cipralex, which is Lexapro in Italian. Everything's sexy in Italy. Like, oh my God, Cipralex. Like, that's hot. And I was given Lexapro Italian Lexapro. And I think it helped me. I remember one weekend I tried to get off of it. I like didn't take it. Like, am I dumb as rocks? I didn't take it. And then the next week I was like so depressed. And I was so focused on getting off of it. I don't even think I took the time that I needed to understand why I was on it and why it was helping me. And I remember I went to a doctor when I came back to America, and I told her I was on it, and I told her my game plan. I said, I really want to get off of it by the end of the year. And she asked me why. I was like, did not expect you to say that. I'm like, fuck, where's my answer? And I said, because I don't want to be on it. I don't want to be on antidepressants. And she said to me, if I told you that you had a thyroid problem and I gave you medication, would you be looking to get off of it? Like, no. I said, no. Why would I be looking to get off of it? It's helping me. And she said, okay, so apply that same scenario to you trying to get off Lexapro. I don't love that doctor because she like told me that Lyme disease was fake, but I really appreciated her sentiment. And that's something that when so many friends come and talk to me and they're like, should I go on medication? What should I do? I give them that same exact example, and it really does not shut them up. It really, it sits with them, and they kind of have to pause and think of, why don't I want to be on this? Like, you take Advil for a headache, you take whatever it may be to make your mind more even. And I think that's a topic on Not That Deep that is something that I will always bring up because it's important. And maybe this is your first time listening to this and you didn't know that about me. Is it changing the way you think about me? Maybe. Do I care? No. It's who I am. And it has helped me so much. And I consider myself like a trusted guide when people are looking to inquire about antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicine. I just had a friend talk to me throughout their entire journey about going on Zoloft, and they were not doing well. I'm purposely saying they. They were not doing well, and they wanted to change. And thankfully, they were at a place where this was something that could help them, medication. And they are so happy, and they are so like appreciative of this medication. They're questioning why they didn't do this sooner. You don't need to question. You have your reasonings and you have your whys of why you didn't do XYZ during XYZ. You're doing it now. Pat yourself on the back, and you are helping yourself, however that may be. So what got me on this tangent is fucking friends. And that's lovely. Something about me, I will always close that circle. And so when I was going through this depression when I was in Italy, I had a roommate who I just did not fuck with. And without going into detail, she loved Friends. She was obsessed with Friends. And every time I would go into the living room, which was like as big as this couch, she would be watching Friends. So I think I resented her, but also the show. So is it really like the show's fault? No, maybe I'll give it another chance when I'm in a better headspace. But I think that the word pivot being only associated with the show Friends is frustrating to me. Like, can Tate McRae come out with a song called Pivot? And it could be about like pivoting herself, like when she is on stage, or like a Sabrina Carpenter vibe or Ariana Grande vibe, like switching up positions. Like Ariana Grande had a really good opportunity during Positions to be like, I'll be pivoting positions for you. And then people would be like, pivot, and think about Ariana instead of like that scene with Ross where I just am like, sorry, is this funny? Maybe I have an acquired taste. Whatever. So Neil pivoted our plan. That's where I'm getting to. And so we go into, once I calm down from my 97-second cry fest, he's like, it's not a big deal. He brought me bagels, and we go to Keen's, and we walk in. The guy's at the door, like, Neil's like, hey, remember me? Like, the guy at the door is so annoyed. He's like, yeah, you were here less than 10 minutes ago. I thought you were coming back in an hour and a half. He's like, we had some tech difficulties, but we're back. He says, okay, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to get you seated until 8. Neil's like, really? Neil's in the restaurant biz. He gets it. He says, that's fine. Can we just grab a drink? So Neil and I are sitting on the couch, and this man with a gorgeous white curly beard, he is like a Santa Claus on Ozempic. He is standing up by the stand, and Neil jokingly goes, that's David Letterman. And I look, and like, old people love to reference that, like, that the young generation doesn't know who these icons are. Like, fear not, I've seen the interviews with Britney Spears. I know who David Letterman is. Don't worry about me. I look over for a second. I think, is that David Letterman? I don't say out loud that I'm actually pondering it. Never show your cards. It's not David Letterman. This guy walks up to us and goes, are you Neil Kleinberg? And he goes, yeah, I am. And this guy is the owner of Keen's. He's a general manager, whatever it is. And he says, Neil, I saw your name on the list. I'm a huge fan of yours. I love Clinton Street. My family loves it. We have your cookbook. We make your pancakes almost weekly. And I'm sitting there watching this experience and this exchange, and I'm literally like this. I am a kid in a candy shop watching this go on, because it was so New York. And these experiences of a small world, I do feel like are meant for New York City. When you run into someone that you were not expecting to run into, where does that happen? I mean, sure, it happens when I go back to Jersey, but that's because I'm like in my hometown. When I am in the middle of Midtown and I see someone that I know, I'm gonna go ballistic. I'm gonna go berserk. And so this guy is, I also love watching people get the credit they deserve, because Neil is, and he will come on eventually when I can get my shit together, but Neil is someone that I would never expect to like really call a friend. And I say that because he is 66 years old. He is my father's age. He has a daughter. He has a wife. He has actually 3 kids. But me being friends with a 66-year-old and not being part of like a best buddies program because of it, like, is really beautiful. And I think that actually my grandma had instilled the idea of never sticking within your age range, not only for dating, but also for friendship. She was always someone who I mean, when she was in her 70s living in Florida, even her 80s, she was always friends with people that were like in their 40s and their 50s or their 30s because it kept her mind sharp, she would say, but also she could relate to them. She wanted to know what was going on with the younger generations. Like she never stayed in her lane. And I think that part of my eagerness to, I mean, befriend anyone, yes, but also make do and make friendship with different generations is why the fuck not? Like staying within your age for friendship is not that deep because you need to be comparing stories, telling stories. Think about the stories that you're going to have in 30 years. Wouldn't it be awesome if someone 30 years younger than you actually took interest in them and actually cared what it was like living in the city in 2025? Like, we are really powerful people and our stories carry weight. And it's just another way to connect, which is my favorite thing to do. Or even I was on the train today and this woman said she loves my pants. My muumuus. They're called my muumuus. They're from Abercrombie. I do not gatekeep, but if you do get them, you can Venmo me. I think that's a fair trade-off. And she goes, I love your pants. And I never keep a compliment to myself. Like when you start giving compliments to people that you mean and their face lights up, you never go back because why are you keeping an amazing thought to yourself? Like that is so selfish of you. Spread it, honey. Like spread the positivity. So I never keep a compliment to myself. I really will not force a compliment. It's so obvious when someone forces one. Someone the other day, I literally was wearing Brooks like running sneakers. They were white. They're filthy. And I complimented this girl's shirt and she like looks me up and down and goes, I love your shoes. And it's like, is everything else about me so bad that the only thing you have to compliment are my shoes that definitely need a wash? Fair. But don't force it. Or you know what? Do what you want. I actually don't care. And so this woman on the subway goes, I love your pants. I go, thank you so much. They're from Abercrombie. And I'm looking at her and this woman is stunning, but also her hair is, you can tell she's like letting it go white and it has the most gorgeous curly complexion. And I go, oh, I'm obsessed with your hair. We talk for 15 minutes on the train about curly hair, about her kids, about what she's doing tonight. We follow each other on Instagram. And I think that's the beauty of not staying in your lane. Get out of your lane. There's a lot going on that's not in your lane, and you don't want to miss it because you were so heads down in your own lane. And so with Neil, I think it's fantastic that the two of us can go out to dinner, crack up, cry. I obviously cried. And so what ended up happening was this guy who is the manager of Keen's gets us a table almost right away. And that's why you got to know people also. And he gets us a table and we sit and the atmosphere feels very New York. And it was one of those places where I'm like, oh, I could use a martini right now. I'm not really drinking alcohol, which is for another episode. But it was such the place to enjoy a martini and gossip. And ordering food with a chef was very fun because he knows what to order. But I also was talking about like, oh my God, I need to be with a guy who cooks or like who enjoys cooking because I am not the type to be like slinging dishes together after a long day. I'm just not. And is that me like ignoring gender roles? Maybe, but I don't think it's that deep. I think it's not my thing. Like I'll marinate chicken and throw it into an air fryer. Yeah. But I mean, for you, like, what do you do? Do you like to cook? Do you like to take out a lot? Like I'm not a DoorDash bitch, but I was telling him I have a joke where I always say like I need to be with someone who is just a little bit gay because I love dick, but I hate decorating. And I need them to want to take over those like more stereotypical women roles because like it's not for me. And Neil really enjoyed that joke, but I really do need someone who can cook. So all in all, We had an amazing night. And I just think that everything happens for a reason. And that's a saying that kind of pisses me off because like when bad things happen, it's like, well, what was the reason? And it's like, I don't know. Not everything could be good, but also I think that everything happens for a reason doesn't need to be X happened and then Y happened, therefore we got Z. No, it could be like something bad happened, but what did you learn from it? What did you take from it? Who did you meet from it? Like trying to find the good is what I take from everything happens for a reason. And so I think that the podcast was canceled. Okay, oh my God, look at me literally putting the blame on someone else. I booked the wrong date for a reason, and I was very grateful that it happened the way it did because I got to have an amazing night at Keen's with Neil. So that wouldn't have really happened if we had done the podcast. Maybe we would have been tired. I don't know, like sue me. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful outlook. Also, like the whole notion of only being able to blame yourself is probably something that will continue to happen in my life where I messed up. The only person to blame is me. And I will leave on a funny story that is so true to my sister Kayla. So when she was younger, she was always funny, but she was funny when she was younger in like a duh way, not in like a comedical genius way. So she, when you have like a project due or homework due the next day that you were supposed to ask your parents for help with, and then you just never did. And then you like wake them up in the middle of the night. Did that ever happen to you? Like I can remember definitely not ever waking them up in the middle of the night, but being like, oh fuck, I was supposed to do this. And then you kind of like lose sleep for a second. And then you either do something about it or you fall back asleep and then you just do it the next day, like in homeroom or something. And she was supposed to bring in bagels for like class breakfast. And I was really young when this story happened, and something that makes me mad is when I was too young to remember things. Like, I think that kind of sucks. But anyways, I've heard this story enough. You can trust me. And Kayla went into my mom's room, woke her up and said, Mommy, I just forgot, but I'm telling you now, we need to bring bagels for my class breakfast tomorrow. Obviously, my mom is so mad. Like, you had all month to let me know that this is your bagel breakfast. I'm gonna look like, oh my God, turkey. I'm gonna look like a horrible mother who forgot to bring in bagels. But meanwhile, like my dumbass daughter forgot to tell me about this. And so my mom is like yelling at her. She's really disappointed in her. She's stressing the importance of remembering to tell me when things are due or if I have to be in charge of something, like, let's not do this again, like teaching a lesson. And then Kayla goes, after all this, she goes, okay, but can we still get the bagels? And so that's kind of like an iconic story in my family because we can still get the bagels. We still will be able to fix this problem that has arose. But what's really important is like how you act during it and how you treat others during a time of distress, because it's so easy to lose your shit. But the power of pivoting and the power of remaining kind goes a really long way. So we still can get the bagels, and I cannot thank you enough for listening to Not That Deep. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, and looking forward to talking to you next time. Bye.